And my name is Ankur Patel, Director of Advancement at Hindu University of America. We've been doing these webinars on Saturday mornings usually, but we have a special one for you today, Hindu Musical Traditions, a cultural immersion. We're gonna put you into the space with your ears. Kanikshi is gonna, we have students, we have music. It's gonna be an interactive session. Thank you for being on. And let me just introduce Dr. Kaniksa Warren, who is an internationally known musician, composer, music educator, and scholar with several recordings, large-scale musical productions, and scores to his credit. Kanikshi is known primarily for his pioneering work in Indian American choral and orchestral music based on ragas. Through his work, he's built diverse coalitions between amateur and professional musicians and ensembles, academic institutions like Hindu University of America, and we're glad to have him join us and be a part of our growing institution. Dance companies he's worked with, and so many more. He's collaborated with many musicians. He's actually founded and directed Indian American community choirs in 12 cities across the United States. It's always amazing to see the reach that we have. If you want to put your city where you're coming in from, please drop it in the chat. I'm in Los Angeles, and we have Zoom bringing us together from all over the world. And Kanikshi is actually taught at the University of Cincinnati, graduate level courses in Indian music theory. And it's an honor to have you on. And I'm looking forward to this program because I understand we're gonna have students participating, but let me hand it over to you and you can kick us off.
Thank you, Ankur. I think we're gonna make you sing too, so. Just kidding. So I thank you all for having me here and joining us this daylight saved Sunday afternoon without the immediate aftershock, and hopefully it'll be a time well spent this afternoon. So since the Indian American choir work that I've done was mentioned in the intro, I think I'll start out with sharing a short video clip of what we have done in the past. And then play another clip that you may be all familiar with, and then take off into the world of Indian art music and the Hindu traditions in music, and then take a look at a couple of compositions, like, almost in depth, to give you a sample of what we'll be covering over the next quarter or so. So this is a 3/4 sequence of courses. The first one was also a cultural immersion, but that is at a very basic level. The second one is about the history of Shastriya Sangeet, and that was a fairly in-depth study of the history of Indian music in a way that is not conventionally studied elsewhere. So this covers the manner in which Indian music was perceived in society for the last couple of millennia. And then the final, the third of this 3/4 sequence is the one that's going to be talking about the Lakshana and the Lakshya. Lakshana refers to practice, and Lakshya, sorry, the other way around. Lakshana is grammar, theory. The Tamil word for Lakshana is Ilakkanam. So Ilakkanam and Lakshanam go together. And Lakshya is practice, and there is Ilakyam, that is the actual discourse of music itself, actual practice of music itself. But before we go there, let me just play you a short clip.
Are you sharing? I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I'm just starting.
Okay, good. There we go.
Can you see anything?
Yeah, this is you can make it full screen so we can hear.
Can you see the stage? Yeah. So we have two monitors, so I just want to make sure the right one's sharing.
Now they're on.
No, they're on. Okay, let me get that. So that was the Shanti Mantra, which is a centerpiece of a musical production that we did called Shanti, A Journey of Peace. And we had performed this in many different places, including the Bay Area, where it was performed as a fundraiser for Hindu programs at the Graduate Theological Union. And that was back in 2016. So that's the kind of work that I have done in the pre-pandemic world, and during the pandemic world, it's kind of transitioned into some online work, and time permitting, I'll share some of that as well as we move towards the end. But today's topic is about an immersion into the world of Indian classical music. So I'm just going to start with something a link. People have asked for a link to this performance. I'm just going to share it in the chat window. And there's many more. If you just go to YouTube and search on my name, you will find a lot of links to our past performances. Now, the next thing I wanted to share is just get introduced to the idea of what the perception, the public perception at large is of Indian classical music, of Shastriya Sangeet. So what is Shastriya Sangeet? Shastriya Sangeet is that music that is based on the Shastras. What Shastras are we talking about? We are talking about the Sangeeta Shastra. So there's a lot of works that have been written that have been created over the last couple of millennia, which have been handed down to us over a period of time. One of them is the Natya Shastra, written by Bharata Muni about 2,000 years ago.
Are you sharing the wrong screen?
I'm just going to play a video very quickly, and then thank you. But thanks for pointing out. Okay, so this is something that most of you must have seen at some point in time, Bandish Bandits. I'm going to keep it in the small screen mode for now to start with, and then just play it. The reason I wanted to do it is that this is a show that is being seen by tons of people. I'm surprised that this particular version on YouTube has only like a couple of 100,000 hits, but nevertheless, it's worth watching this. Let's just spend about 2 minutes watching this.
जागो मोहन प्यारे तुम जागो मोहन प्यारे तुम सावरी सूरत मोरे मन भाए सावरी सूरत मोरे मन भाए प्रात समय उठी भानुदय भय, प्रात समय उठी सनि सरे सा नि सरे सा नि सा धनि सा धनि सा धनि सा नि सा धनि ध सा नि रे नि सा धनि सा ध सा नि धनि ध प म ध प म ग प म ग म रे म ग रे ग रे सा नि रे सा। प्रात समय उठी भानु, प्रात समय उठी भानुदय भय, ग्वाल बाल सब भूपति ठारे, दर्शन के सब भूखे प्यासे, उठिए नंद दुलारे, तुम जागो मोहन प्यारे। सरे ग म प रे ग म प ध ग म प ध नि म प ध नि सा नि सा रे ग रे सा ध नि सा नि सा नि ध प म प ध प म ग रे सा नि सा। जागो मोहन प्यारे तुम, सरे ग म प रे ग म प ध ग म प ध नि म प ध नि सा प ध नि सा रे ग नि सा नि सा ध नि सा नि सा नि ध नि ध प म ध प म ग प म ग रे सा नि रे सा।
Okay, that's what I wanted to share. And let me get back into the. Okay. So that's something that many people must have seen. Bandish Bandits. It is a pretty popular serial, and it was based on the theme of Indian classical music. So one would wonder, how is it possible to make a full-fledged, successful series on in Indian classical music? Now, the thing is, there's a lot of history behind all of it, and there's a tremendous amount of intricacy that's behind Indian classical music, and I just want to give a short overview of what we are going to be covering in the next quarter, which is starting the first week of April. So let me share my screen again. Please let me know if you can see my PowerPoint. If you see something else, please let me know.
Yes, we can see the PowerPoint.
Okay, excellent. So
and do you want to go to full screen?
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, you probably don't see it, right? Do you see it?
No, it's not full screen.
There's some. It's spilling over the full screen into the other monitor. So let me. See what I can do. See, if I share the full screen, it's jumping onto the second monitor. Maybe I should get rid of the second monitor completely, and then.
It's doing all of this digitally. It's so different and strange, right? When you're in a performance and you can feel the sound vibrating and in the actual theater. I remember it, and I'm missing out on it, but I feel maybe you have a thought about that as well, and how it's changed and how it impacts all of this.
Oh, definitely. So do you see this? Do you see the full screen now?
No, you're not sharing.
No.
Yeah, see the PowerPoint, not full screen. There we go. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. So first of all, what is music? So if an alien were to come to the earth and take a look at music, this is what they would perceive. What an odd thing to see in an entire species, billions of people playing with, listening to meaningless tonal patterns, occupied and preoccupied for much of the time by what they call music. Now, this is aliens listening to music, coming to the earth and taking a look at music. But if they listen to Indian music, let's say, what would they feel? First of all, Indian music is very different from Western music. The ideas explored are different. The history is different. The context is different. What is defined as the aesthetics are very different. So when we talk about music itself, and then within music, when we talk about Indian music, we have the traditional art music form versus the regional folk music forms. And within the traditional art music form, you have Hindustani music versus Carnatic music versus dance music. And then you have the whole segment of popular and folk and other music forms. So what we define as traditional art music or classical music is music that is, but using two different parameters. One is music that has survived the test of time, something that's been around for a long time. And second, something that has very well defined grammar and rules of performance and theory and so on. So it's always very nice to compare Eastern and Western music traditions. And there's this famous conversation that's supposed to have happened between Einstein and Rabindranath Tagore. And both were trying to reach out and appreciate the other form of music. And a lot of interesting things came out of that conversation, apparently. But let me just quickly get into the philosophy of Indian music. The fundamental difference between Indian and Western music in terms of philosophy is that in the Western world, you're looking at music as a form of entertainment. And even in the sacred music traditions, music is like it's like an offering to the divine. Whereas when you look at in the world of Indian music, the philosophy of music is that Veena Vadana Tattvajnaha Shruti Jati Visharadaha Talajnaha Aprayasena Moksha Margam Niyachiti. So the concepts of music, such as Shruti, Jati, that is a microtones, the scales, which are precursors to the ragas, as well as the tala and other terminology, etc. One who's an expert in these distinctions of music, plus one who can play the veena, and one who is knowledgeable in the idea of talas, to that person, moksha, liberation, spiritual liberation, is guaranteed. And how is it guaranteed? Aprayasena, without prayasam. So if you're skilled in music, your liberation is guaranteed. And if you look at this postulation in the figurative, in the literal sense, when you are immersed in a world of music where you are appreciating every bit of it with total awareness, you are lost. You're completely lost. It literally burns up karma. When you practice music in a knowing way, when you appreciate the nuances of the distinctions between various frequencies, and they're actually able to pull the Veena strings and visualize the frequencies in your ears and actually realize them on a stringed instrument, you are guaranteed moksha. That is what this means. And this is a philosophy of music. It's nothing about entertainment or anything like that. It's much more than that. And this shloka was written sometime in the first millennium Common Era. So this shloka is at least 1500 years old, and then it was repeated again in the Sangeet, or something inspired on this, this concept was mentioned in the Sangeeta Ratnakara, which was again written about 1,000 years ago. So we are talking about history which originated a couple of thousand years ago, but has been reflected by other media, other literature, which came into being in later years. And what we have with us today is a result of accumulation or assimilation of ideas over the last couple of thousand years at least. So if you look at Indian music history, you're talking about the origins of music all the way in the Samaveda music chants. And that's what we studied in detail in the last quarter. Then we talked about the origin of various concepts right in the early stages, like Murchana, Shruti, Jati, and all the kind of stuff. Then we talked about early works on music, such as the Narada Siksha, Yajnavalkya Siksha, and other works that delineated the spiritual emphasis on music and correlated the Vedic and popular music and all that stuff. Then the Natya Shastra, which is a treatise on dance written about 2,000 years ago, which talks about the 22 Shrutis, or the microtones in an octave. Then we talked about the Silapadikaram. And not everybody in India has heard of the Silapadikaram, and we emphasized it quite a lot during our course. The Silapadikaram is a Tamil epic. Tamil is a classical language in India, and it's got several literary creations. And the Silappatikaram was written somewhere around the 1st century CE. And it's a phenomenal work. It's an epic story that tells of something that happened in an area that covers the three major Tamil kingdoms, which constitute Tamil Nadu and Kerala today. Now, the Silappatikaram is not just a story. It has vivid descriptions of music theory, of dance performances. In fact, the protagonist in the Silappatikaram is a woman by name Madhavi. Madhavi is a dancer. She is a courtesan. She is skilled in the art of music and dance, and she's skilled in the art of playing the harp. Not just playing the harp, she's skilled in the art of tuning a harp. For those that have seen a harp, you know what it is. It's got tons of strings, and tuning it's you need to be a person with almost with an OCD to be able to tune a harp right. So Silappatikaram deals with concepts such as how an instrument is tuned and so on and so forth. So we learn a lot about the extent music theory from that period by reading the Silappatikaram. Then we get into the Bhakti movement of the first millennium in Tamil Nadu, which saw the coming together, the rise of the yogis. I decline to use the word saints here, but these are the poets, the poets, the Siva yogis and the Vaishnava alvars, the Nayanmars and the alvars, who traveled on foot from temple to temple, singing the glory of the temples that they visited, all in Tamil and all in ragas of that age. The ragas then in the southern region were referred to as Pan, and all this work was codified during the time of the king Rajaraja Soran, who is known otherwise for building the huge temple in Tanjavur. And this codified work was set up for singing in all Shiva temples all over the Tamil region by this far-sighted and visionary king, who made sure that there were endowments set up everywhere in order to provide for the families that learn this art. They learn the art of singing the Tevaram compositions and keep them alive through successive generations. The result is that we have a living tradition, which is about 1,000 years old, now actually more than 1,000 years old, which has been handed over from generation to generation in Shiva temples all over Tamil Nadu. This is a legacy that needs to be preserved, documented, propagated, and made known to the world. So we studied about that. Then we talked about the Ashtapadis, and then we talked about the later work Sangeeta Ratnakara, which forms the basis of Indian music theory, both in northern India and in southern India. But prior to going into all this in the first quarter, we clearly discussed the differences in practice between the northern tradition and the southern tradition, keeping in mind fully that both the traditions are based on a core of commonality, which is rooted in ragas and talas in a manner not seen anywhere else in the world. In my opinion, and based on what you see all over India, the core is the same. Nobody can disagree with that. It's just that the way in which music is rendered, the language, the context, and all those are different, which is what makes such a world of a difference seem to appear between, say, for example, Khayal performance and a Tevaram performance in a temple. Okay, then we talked about Amir Khusru, the musician in the court of Alauddin Khilji, and the creation of the sitar, and the creation of the form of music called the tarana, and the slow differences in practice which began to appear between began to appear in various regions across India. Then we talked about the birth of Dhrupad from the Prabandha form of music described in earlier texts. So the Dhrupad is something that came into being in around the 1400s, and it still survives today. It is one of the oldest court music traditions in India, and there are families that still preserve and propagate Dhrupad. We talked about how Dhrupad was sung in the court of Shah Jahan. Then we talked about how musicians migrated from central India, that is from places like Devagiri down to Vijayanagar, and all the way from Vijayanagar into Tanjavur. Now, Tanjavur is a very interesting place, and all of India needs to know the history of Tanjavur. It's not just in the deep south. It's not just about Sambar, but definitely the sambar came into being in Tanjavur. That's another story, and we'll talk about that in class as well. That was thanks to Shivaji's son, Sambhaji. And you can also learn about this from uh, Raja, Rasoi, or Anya Kahani. That's a serial that came on Netflix. It's probably still available. Just look up the episode in Tamil Nadu. You'll learn about Tanjavur. Anyway, Tanjavur was a court of the Marathas, because Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaja came all the way down south in the 1670s, and he set up a center center of Maratha rule in Tanjavur, and appointed his half brother Ekoji to rule from there. And that's how the Marathi dynasty started. And they were great supporters of the arts. So were the ones that preceded them, the Nayakas. And so music flourished in the Nayak court as well as the Maratha court in Tanjavur. And that's where a lot of theoretical developments happened. And it's the growth of this theory that spurred the birth of the three Vageya Karas in the 1700s and 1800s, which are popularly referred to today as the Carnatic Trinity. And the three Vageya Karas gave birth to a huge repertoire of compositions, which set the basis for the modern Kacheri traditions in southern India. Now, parallelly, what is happening in the northern region was the birth of gharanas, or household-based music schools. So we have many different gharanas like the Jaipur, the Beenkar, the Patiala, and the Kirana, and there's so many different gharanas. Each of the gharanas follow different techniques for teaching. Each of them specializes in many different compositions and compositional styles. And all this was compiled thanks to the work of a tireless musicologist by name Bhatkande, Pandit Bhatkande, Vishnu Narayan Bhatkande, who lived about 100 years ago, who published this monumental work called the Hindustani Sangeet Padathi, parallel to the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, which was published in southern India. And Bhatkande documented about 1,500 compositions all over India. And it was thanks to all this work that education was streamlined. The way of teaching music was streamlined. And also it was thanks to Paluskar that the Gandharva Mahavidyalayas were set up. And it was thanks to Pandit Ravi Shankar that Indian music came west and got popularized in a big way here. The Ali Akbar School of Music in the Bay Area. And then the large growth of Carnatic music in the Indian community in Northern America in the last 30 years or so. And now the new serial on TV, Bandish Bandits. So this, in short, is an essence of how Indian music has evolved over the last 2,000 years. So right now, what we can visibly observe is that there are two widely divergent performance traditions. One is the Carnatic music tradition. The audiences in a Carnatic music concert are very different. The Kacheri audiences are different from the audiences that attend a concert of Hindustani music. So I'm just going to demonstrate that in both the Lakshya and the Lakshana are very important. The Lakshya is practice and the Lakshana is a grammar, the theory. So when we talk Lakshya, we talk about Sampradaya or tradition. And when we talk Lakshana, it is theory or Shastra. Okay, so all these words are important. Lakshya, Sampradaya, Lakshana, and Shastra. Both are needed for a classical tradition, whether it's music or dance or anything like that. So, and they vary across the genre of music that you're talking about. So this, on the left, you see a Hindustani music khayal rendition with the harmonium accompaniment and the tabla. And on the right, you see a Southern Indian kacheri with the mridangam and the violin. And one thing that could immediately strike you is, okay, you see the tanpuras. Yes, the tanpuras are Indian instruments. You see the mridangam, which is an Indian instrument. You see the tabla, which is also an Indian instrument. But you also see the harmonium and you see the violin. Now, what stands out odd here? The violin is clearly a Western instrument. How did it come to India? And how does it occupy a central place in the kacheri? And similarly, the harmonium, people assume that it's an Indian instrument, but it was actually brought to India as part of missionary work. It was like an organ, and you needed a portable organ, and this was the most portable organ that could be used anywhere, because you didn't have the foot bellows or anything. Everything was done with the hand. So the harmonium was an import, and somehow it was successfully almost appropriated into the world of Indian classical music. And similarly, the violin was introduced to Indian classical music by a person called Baluswami Dikshitar, who's the brother of a Bhagyakara called Muthuswami Dikshitar. Um, Both of them heard the violin being played in Fort St. George, like in the 1790s. And the younger brother, Baluswami Dikshitar, wanted to learn to play the violin, and he did learn. And then he started. So that was his reimagination of Carnatic music on the violin, and that's his huge contribution to Carnatic music. So common to both the traditions is the raga. I don't want to get into the definition of a raga, but a raga is something very central and core to Indian classical music. So I just want to give a very quick experience of ragas. So spring has started, and it's raining here in Cincinnati. But in India, rains have a different connotation altogether. There are two different ragas that deal with rain in the Indian tradition. One is Amrita Varshney in southern India. And the story about Amrita Varshney is that there was a big drought in southern India, and Muthuswami Dikshitar, the Bhagyakara that we talked about, he sang this raga and immediately brought a downpour of rain. So what this tells you is that this is about the link between music, almost as a form of energy, and the elements. So the connection between music and the elements, the power of music to move the elements. And similarly, in the Hindustani world, this raga called Malhar, or the most popular version of Malhar is Miya Malhar or Miya Ki Malhar. That is the Malhar raga. If you look at the word Malhar, it's Malahari, that which is capable of removing blemishes, that which is capable of removing the malam, or the dirt. So let's first look at the Hindustani composition. I'm just very quickly going to sing this and then get into the Carnatic composition. So this is how it goes. It's a very folksy sounding lyrics, but it's conveys the mood of the season, and it is sung for sure on the classical music platform to convey the feelings associated with the season of the monsoons. It's like bijuri chamke barse harwa ai badariya bijuri chamke barse में हरवा गरज गरज मुहि अतहि धरावे बिजुरी चमके बरसे में हरवा घन गरजे घन बिजुरी चमके घन गरजे घन बिजुरी चमके पपिहा पियु की ठहर सुनावे कहाँ करूं कित जाऊं मोरा जियरा तर से बिजुरी चमके बरसे मेहरवा. So the song is about the monsoon season, right? So the lyrics convey the mood of the monsoons, and it's typically sung only during the monsoon season to reflect the mood of the thing. You won't hear people singing it during winter or during the summer season or anything like that. So the words reflect what's going on there. Okay, and dharave and tarse and all that. The ending syllable is like an a, right? That's a vowel with which the lines end. There's two sections to the composition. It's very brief. You just see the sthai and the antara. And if you go to the Carnatic music composition, this is the raga called Amrita Varshney. This is the raga that's capable of bringing down the monsoon, bringing down the rain. The story goes that this part of India was hit with a drought, and Muthuswami Dikshitar went to this part of India, the deep south. It's a place called Ettayapuram, near a place called Tirunelveli. Um, and when all the Tirunelveli, I mean, the closest international airport is Trivandrum in Kerala, and the closest local airport is a place called Thuthukudi. So this is in the deep south, and this place was hit by a drought, and Dikshitar was moved by the dryness of the land. So he sang this raga. This is the first ever known composition in this raga. So this was like a prayer to Devi, to Bhavani, Haradi Pujite, Shive Bhavani. So Ananda Amrita Karshini, Amrita Varshini, one who is capable of bringing down the nectar of rain. And what is special about the nectar? So there's some deep-rooted connection between the word nectar and the nectar of life. Amritam just means the opposite of mrityu, right? Amritam, Amrita Varshini. Water makes all the difference between lifelessness and life. 2/3 of human body is water. So and more about all that in the class. And these are the two sections of the composition: Anandamrita Karshini, then Sri Nandanadi Samrakshini. There are many things that you need to observe here. The second syllable, Ananda, Sri Nandanadi, then Sananda. Okay, so the second syllable is Nand, literally. So, and you see the concordance across the different lines in this composition. That's part of the grammar that is followed strictly in the construction of compositions. And there's only 2 sections in the composition, but usually there are more than 2 sections in compositions in the Southern Indian tradition. So I'm going to very quickly sing this composition. Anandamrita Karshini, Amrita Varshini, Haradi Pujite, Chive Bhavani, Nandamrita Karshini. That is section 1. Section 2 is going to be Shri Nandanadi Samrakshini, Shri Guru Guha Janani Chedrupini, Sananda Hridayanilaye Sadaye Satya Suvrishti Hetave Tvam Santatam Chintaye Amriteshwari Salilam Varshaya 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 Nandamrita Karshini. So the word that is uttered 3 times, Varshaya, Varshaya, Varshaya. Please bear forth the rain. Please rain, please rain, please rain. The story goes that as soon as he finished singing this composition, just burst into rain, and the drought was relieved. So that is a composition which was created more than maybe about, so it was like around 1820s that it was created. So this was created about 200 years ago. Now, what you hear in a concert is not just the compositions. There's another layer. So a created composition is what's called Kalpita Sangeetam. And apart from that, everything that is made up on the spot is called Mano Dharma Sangeetam. Mano Dharma means improvisation, that which is created on the spot. So that's what you hear in kacheris and also in mehfils and in other forms of performance. So there's a lot of terminology, which is interesting. And the thing about the terminology is that the terms make sense. The terms are not in Greek or anything like that. They are in the vernacular, and they are in they are in a combination of Sanskrit and the vernacular, and they make a lot of contextual common, proper sense when you understand them and start using them. So it's something that you would all benefit from learning these terms. And more than anything, I think what you will get from this class is the ability to articulate the history of our musical tradition, the history of our culture, that you can share accurate, correct information in the correct perspective with people that are not aware of the traditions. So the 3/4 sequence or any part of these classes will definitely give you the tools that you can have at your disposal to talk and present this culture to your friends and to others. I'm sure the entire group here would love to share our heritage with the rest of the world. And that's what I strive to present through this series of these classes. I'm going to stop now and open up the session to questions. So please go ahead. Actually, Ankur, if you can moderate, it'll be great.
Yeah, please put your questions in the Q&A box. We have one, and kind of touches on the different background you have in terms of the different contributions of different people. And an attendee specifically wants to know about Telugu people and their contributions to the historical music traditions of India.
Absolutely. I would like to answer this question live. So here's what, click on done. Yes. Telugu. I can follow Telugu to some extent, not to a great extent. And I wish I could follow more, because there's a world of stuff that's been written in Telugu in the Carnatic music tradition. Okay, if you take the Vageyakaras, the people that created the music repertoire about 200 years ago, they were all proficient in Telugu. The greatest work in music theory that was written in the last 120 years is the Sangeet Sampradaya Pradarshini, which was written by an author called Subbarama Dikshitar in the Tirunelveli area. And the entire work was written in Telugu, because Telugu was the court language in the Tanjavur court. The Tanjavur court was a place where you could hear multiple languages. But Telugu enjoyed a status which was different from other languages. You had to be aware of Telugu. You had to be like how they wrote operas in Italian, right? So Telugu enjoyed that kind of a status. So many of the Vageyakaras created kritis in Telugu, although their mother tongue was not Telugu. Then apart from that, you have people like Annamaya, people like Bhadrachala Ramadasa, people like Tyagaraja, whose mother tongue was Telugu, and they created a wealth of compositions in Telugu. Plus, some of the people that migrate that even authored works of theory, like significant names in musicology, like Rama Amatya and all that, people from the medieval period. So there's a lot of contribution from the Telugu side. Yes. Mano Dharma Sangeetam, Khayal Gaiki. Yes, Mano Dharma simply refers to improvisation. If I sing a pre-composed, if I sing Bijuri Chamke Barse Me Harwa, I'm singing a composition that was written before. But if I that's called an alap. I'm making it up on the spot, right? So that is called Mano Dharma. And Mano Dharma is a term that's used both in Hindustani and the Carnatic music traditions. In the Carnatic music tradition, it's like if I take Ananda Amrita Sanipa Maga Sanipa Ananda Gamabani Mapa Gama Saga Pamaga Sania Nanda ni pani ni mama papa gaga mama sasagaga. Making all these up on the spot, but I'm following a certain grammar. So it's like improvisation within constraints, and that is what is called Mano Dharma. Okay. There's one more comment about musical training and enjoying the learning. So you don't have to have had any musical training to take this course and to get a lot out of it. That is for sure. If you enjoy listening to Indian music, and if you have listened to Indian music before, and if you're curious to know more, you will definitely get a lot from this class.
And because this is in a sequence of courses,
Mhm.
is it required that they were in the previous courses?
Not really. It would give you an enhanced perspective if you were in a previous thing. For instance, when we're talking about, let's say we learn a Tevaram composition. Okay, what we plan on doing that during the next term is to take many different compositional forms and analyze them piece by piece, section by piece. Listen to multiple recordings of the same piece and look at the different styles of rendition, and also learn some concepts of theory to get you awareness of terms that in a systematic way. And also learn to define certain fundamental concepts like ragas and talas and so on and so forth. Okay. Next question I see here is there a specific type of Shastriya music that helps meditation or doing sadhana? Um, Basically, when you meditate, you try to get in touch with your innermost core, at which point in time, um, once, let's say you are in a state of pratyahara where you have withdrawn all the senses, then you get into a state of dharana, which is complete focus, right? And then you get into dhyana. When you're in a state of dhyana, you almost try to dissociate yourself from um, any form of sensory awareness, basically. That said, I will still say that there are certain ragas that take you to that sense of calmness. Like they did not say Veena Vadana Tattvagyaha Shruti Jati Visharadaha Talagyaha Aprayasena Moksha Margam Niyaschati for nothing. There are certain ragas like Madhyamavati, there are certain ragas like Megh, which, or even ragas like most ragas will put you in a meditative stupor. Once you start focusing on it, then you become one with it, and then after that, there's nothing. So the listening to an alap, particularly the Drupad alap, will help you get into a state which is typically devoid of any kind of distraction. How many types of Indian music are there? There's it's kind of hard to answer that question, but let me say upfront the broad distinction between the northern and the southern traditions. We have the Carnatic tradition, which is also within which you have many different sub-traditions like the temple music or the Tevaram, the Kacheri music or the concert music. And then you have the dance music, and then you have other sub-traditions like in different regions and so on. Similarly, in the Hindustani tradition, you have Drupad versus Khyal, and you can specialize in things like bhajans or tumris and so on and so forth. Plus, the repertoire in dance music traditions is very different from the repertoire in khyals and so on. So that is my quick answer to the question. The next one is, did Carnatic and Hindustani develop semi-independent, or did they influence each other more intimately? Why do the ragas in each sound so different? Certain ragas that are popular in the south, certain ragas that are commonly used in the south are not heard in the north. These are all just stylized differences, I would say. And the primary driving difference is what is called the gamakam or the gamak, the way in which notes are ornamented. In the southern tradition, we have a form of gamak called the kampitam. The word kampa means to shake. So certain notes are shook more, shaken more, which you don't see in Hindustani music, where the glide is what you see way more in Hindustani music compared to what you hear in southern India. So that's it's almost like you have to tune your ears differently to be able to appreciate one versus the other. And there's a tremendous amount of joy when you actually appreciate both and start seeing the commonalities. And I strive to stand for that all the time, and you will get some of that in this class as well.
Yeah, and that's part of why this course is so beautiful. You get to interact with Ganesh-ji. He'll walk you through this. I'm going to drop the information for the course in the chat right now. And would love to also announce that we're going to do a $100 discount for the next 24 hours, 48 hours. And so now's the time to get involved. It's been amazing seeing the range of course offerings we have at Hindu University of America, and bringing in experts and just amazing people like Kanixji to have this level of connection and study on this topic with this focus. We'll keep on taking questions. The course is regularly $300. We're going to charge $200, and the details are on through this link. And there are no prerequisites. As Kanixji has said, he's going to walk you through it and explain where he can, and it's going to be an amazing, quarter experiencing this music with other Hindus and other people from around the world.
I'm going to request participants from the current quarter, if Jay Iyer or if Rama or anybody else is online, please feel free to just post a message on the chat window and unmute yourself and just speak your comment.
Raise your hand and I can promote you to a panelist. I'm looking for you folks right now. Oh, there we go.
Hi, Kanixji, can you hear me, Ankur?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity here. So I've been with the course for the last 2 quarters, and I will tell you that it's been an amazing experience for me personally. But just to get some context, I think the coursework, the sessions have given an excellent framework to understand Shastriya Sangeetam. I had, when I joined the course, I had some level of familiarity with, both Carnatic and Hindustani. I mean, I was a Rasika, more on the listening side. My family members are deeply into the actual performance aspect, but the theoretical foundations that Kanixji walked it through was just amazing. The connection to what I was actually listening started to make a lot more sense. And I'm actually in a phase now where I'm starting to really enjoy the aspects of both Carnatic as well as Hindustani music. The second point I would make is that Kanixji has a unique way of connecting to some of the key historical events that have shaped the evolution of the types of music. So that to me was also an educational journey for me. So I'm now learning a lot more about Indian history as well, in addition to the development of Indian music. And I think perhaps the most important aspect of this, and I'll stop there, is I think it's unlikely that you'll find a similar offering elsewhere. The mission that I think HUA has, along with how Kanixji's course plays into the overall vision of HUA, I think just blends really, really well. And I'm so thankful that I discovered this course. Again, Kanixji, thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in class who would like to share?
Yes.
Who's coming in?
Yeah, Uncle Connects, can you hear me?
Yeah. If you turn on your camera, we'll be able to see you also.
Hold on. Yeah, I'll do that also. So this was a great course, Connects. I really benefited with the sweep of history and how music has changed over the course of the last 2000 years. And like what Jay said, the sweep of history that you covered and the changes in the music and how various different forms of music arose and how they mingled with the changing history of the times was really, really informative. Specifically, I was able to appreciate many of the nuances of the course in the form of like tidbits that you offered, which I was able to connect with the history that I learned at some time. I was also very enthusiastic about the participants who were involved in a very lively dialogue with you during the course, and also off the course using the WhatsApp group and all that. So this is one of the best courses that I've ever heard as far as music is concerned, and the history of Indian music and how to appreciate Indian music. So I'm really ready to join the next course.
Thank you, Nat. Okay. So what time is it? It's about 5:56. I have a couple of minutes for I can take a couple of more questions. So actually, why don't I address? So the main thing I try to do in this class is to, like both Nat and Jay pointed out, is to give a very clear historic perspective. Why does something exist a certain way based on what happened in the past? So that is what we are trying to address in this course, and also make sure that our perception of history is not distorted, and make sure that our heritage is acknowledged, and that the people that contributed to Indian music and handed it over across generations, so that we have something valuable at our disposal and at a perusal, is we go all the way back to the source and acknowledge it. And that's very important, how the Vijayanagar Empire played a key role in making sure that what we have as culture and what we have as music today is what it is. So we, in all three quarters, we have acknowledged Vijayanagar significantly, and we will continue to do that. So that is just one thing. Yes. So the syllabus is, like I said before, we will touch history as off and on, but we will be distinguishing between Kalpita Sangeetam and Mano Dharma Sangeetam, and we'll be taking up theory. Concepts will be taken up and defined, and we will also take a few compositions and analyze the structure of those compositions, and listen to many different versions of those, and have you get a very keen sense of appreciation of what you're listening to. That's the thing. So Ankur, you said you're going to be doing a survey, right? Or is it already been sent out?
Yeah, let me put that survey out. Please fill out this information. If you're considering enrolling in Hindu musical traditions this next quarter, just click that yes or no, and then can someone from our team follow up with you, answer your questions, talk you through, help you register, whatever the issues are. We're trying to get that discount set up. I thought it was already set up, but we will honor that $100 discount for the next 48 hours. We'll also send a follow-up email with the links and the webinar replay. If that's what you're looking for also, we'll make sure that we get that to you in the next day or so after we upload it. So please fill out this survey and indicate if you are interested in enrolling in this course. Do we have any other students that wanted to give a testimonial? I have another hand. Winit Hasina G. I don't know if that's a student or if that was a question. And then there's the whole Q&A box. There's like another 10 questions if you want to pull out some of those and answer any of those that are particularly interesting.
Yeah, someone wanted to know what's the emphasis going to be more on Carnatic or Hindustani. As much as possible, I'd like to keep it 50-50. So it may go this way, that way. It all depends on how the class is progressing. What's the age criteria? There's no upper limit. You can be 102 and still do this class and get something out of it. Although I might learn something from you if you're 102. As for the younger age limit, I think let me talk to Kalyan and we'll figure it out separately. And any topics for research in Indian classical music? Yeah, this term we did request students to write a paper and do a presentation on certain personalities. And we're going to be publishing that as a small ebook. So there'll be like at least 10 essays in it talking about different personalities that you may have not heard about elsewhere. But in the context of what they have contributed when they lived and what is the history behind the time that they lived and everything. So I think I've answered most of the questions. Are you going to teach about ragas for total novices? Yeah, anybody can gain something out of the class. So nobody is a total novice. So what makes raga associated with particular feelings like malhar? And so it's a cultural concept involving acclimatation, and I will explain that more in class. So I think I've answered most of the questions. Pranayama and Mridangam, I don't know. I don't know an answer to the question. Sorry, Tej.
And if you have anything that we did not answer, please feel free to send us an email and we can follow up and connect you.
Sheetal has the question, Sheetal Shah. What's your thought in why haven't second generation Indian Americans embraced non-Bollywood music? It's a mix of both. There is a huge chunk of next gen kids that have mastered Indian music, particularly Carnatic music, in a way that even my generation did not. It's pretty scary. The competitive spirit has been fused with the huge knowledge base of Carnatic music, and where they are is something spectacular. So we talked about that a little in the history class. But then there's a lot of other people where, see, Bollywood music is much more easily accessible. Plus, there's a whole variety of non-Indian music that's available. So what is it that can get them attracted to classical music? We need to brainstorm on that, and we will definitely do that during the next session. The main reason I see is that the pedagogy that we have in India is very different from the structured pedagogy that's there for Western music in schools here. And if that was rectified, I think the affiliation with the classical traditions will be a lot more. Yeah. Can a student of age 12? I am not sure. I probably have to open another section for that. So yeah.
We've had some middle school students join, if they're capable, and we can go through the individual process to make sure, but that happy to have people at least participate and interested in it. Thank you for that. Kanixji, closing thoughts?
So feel free to reach out to any of us. You can call, you can always email me. You can go to kanix.com or send me an email at kanix@gmail.com or kanix@kanix.com. Check out stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of my recordings out there. And if you have a ear for singing, please do join us in one of our virtual sessions. And I meant to play that too, but it's already 6:03. Otherwise, we can send you a link. Some of the virtual choir sessions that we're doing. So if you can sing in pitch, and if you'd like to sing with us, you can enroll in one of the virtual choir programs that I'm doing. There's no prerequisite for this class.
Great. And we'll send you the link and all that information. If Kanixji, you want to share anything, we'll get it out to everyone who registered for the webinar. All right. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we'll see you in one of these courses in this next quarter starting in April.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Dhanyawad.
Thank you all. Yeah.